never seen it happen before. It has actually been 50 years since the last one had successfully been converted. It basically is a rule that states that if you are bumped into during a fair catch, you can take the penalty, and after you take the 15-yard penalty for the obstruction, you have the option to either start your offense from there, or you can line up for a field goal. And so this is a special field goal where, there's a holder, and the kicker can kick the ball, but, there's no defense allowed. It's as if you're doing a kickoff. So there's, no O-line blocking, there's no snap, really. Or maybe there was a snap, I don't totally recall, but, the defense is not allowed to try and block it. It's just, I don't even think there was an O-line. I'm pretty sure it was just allowed to go. So yeah, very rare. First one since 1976 that has been converted. And so that was what, Cameron Dicker hitting a 57-yard free kick to end the first half, and that gave the Chargers a bit of momentum heading into the second half. The second half, completely different story from the first half. In the first half, the Broncos, they were able to run the ball pretty well. Bo Nix was throwing it pretty well. Not at all the case in the second half. They are unable to do much on offense. The Chargers defense really tightens up, so the run game is taken away from the Broncos. And for some reason, they decided only to do short passes. Bo Nix forgot how to throw past 5 yards. It was just dink and dunk, and they really had no success with it, so their offense just got played off the field time and time again, whereas the Chargers, they went in at halftime with this free kick momentum, and they figured it out all of a sudden, come out with a touchdown on their first drive, then a touchdown on their second drive, which was magnificent. Justin Herbert, he rolls out to his left. He is off balance, kind of throwing as he falls, almost. Just a crazy looking throw. And it is a dot, an absolute dot to someone, I forget who. Some guy named Davis. I really don't know who he is. The Chargers, they run with a lot of guys who are unfamiliar to me. But, yeah, just an absurd throw and catch. And then on the 2-point attempt, it gets tipped. So it looked like it won't convert, and then Joshua Palmer tracks it in the sky, is able to grab it and get his feet in before falling out of bounds. Just an unreal back-to-back of plays by the Chargers, and then they go on to win it. So with victory here, the Broncos would have clinched a playoff berth. They would have, had the Chargers wondering a bit more, and things looked really bright for them in the first half, but absolutely fell apart in the second half, a little bit worrisome. Chargers, they responded really well, and I don't think that they clinched, but their playoff hopes are a lot better with this win. So a very important game that they won here. Both teams now at a record of 9-6. And yeah, just phenomenal stuff by the Chargers. After that, we move into a Saturday matchup between the Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs. Sorry, my voice is a little bit whistly. Yeah, and in this game, it was the Chiefs who got a better start. It was the Texans start with an interception, and then the Chiefs get on the board. Towards the end of the first half, Texans throw yet another pick. So they move the ball little by little, but keep turning it over. And surprisingly, the game doesn't really get away from them in the third quarter. They manage to essentially catch up to the Chiefs, throwing this long touchdown pass that I think was intended for a Texans wide receiver. It's hard to say who they were doing in the end zone, and unfortunately they collided. It was Tank Dell and this other Texans wide receiver who I'm not as familiar with. They fully, full speed collided, and it caused Tank Dell to dislocate his kneecap and tear his ACL. So the car got for him. And yeah, it was a sad sight to see. And yeah, after that, Texans, they missed the kick that would have tied the game. Later on, they have another chance where they're not down by that much. They are in the red zone. It's 1st and 10 at the... not 1st and 10. It's 1st and goal at the 10. Oops. Sorry, I'll have to edit that out. That was a Discord ping. What was I saying? Yeah, 1st and goal at the 10-yard line, and they take a sack, and they have a false start or a delayed game. It just bad execution in the red zone eventually pushes them out of a manageable 4th down distance, and they have to go for a field goal. Basically, they lost the game at that point. Had they been able to score a touchdown there, it's anyone's game. But credit to them for battling after such a tough injury. And it's been a tough year for the Texans. You have Nico Collins coming out to such a bright start to the year, looking like what Jamar Chase looked like, just absolutely dominating in catches and yards. Then he gets injured, has to go to IR. Then you've got Stephon Diggs, who they acquired in the offseason, having a decent start to the year as well. Tears his ACL, I believe it was, and then he is out for the year, season ending. And then Tank Dell, he kind of takes over, steps up. Nico Collins is eventually able to come back, but then now Tank Dell, just all of these wide receivers going through it this year. Texans started off really well, but offensive injuries have been limiting for them. And with the Chiefs, it's kind of the opposite story. They had a lot of injuries early on. Hollywood Brown out for what looked like the entire year, very early on. Then you have Rashee Rice gets off to a good start, and then he has a season-ending injury after Patrick Mahomes accidentally collides into him. And then Isaiah Pacheco, with the broken bone. All of these things that look like they're going wrong, somehow they still managed to get through that stretch, winning all these games, and now they are at like the healthiest they've been. They got Hollywood Brown back. He looked pretty solid in his debut. Xavier Worthy has been playing nicely. He played very well in this game. Isaiah Pacheco is back. So just the Chiefs already with an impressive year, and now they're getting healthy at the right time. It's going to be incredibly difficult for a team to take them down as they just get more weapons heading into week 16. So yeah, that is. Did I ever talk about the score? I don't know. The Chiefs won that game 27-19. Yeah, so yet another one-score game for them. After that, we move into our second Saturday game of this week. This was a matchup between the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. A game that we saw a couple weeks ago, in which the Steelers were able to get the best of the Ravens. Now it was time to see in Baltimore what was going to happen. Fun fact, this is actually the first game that Lamar Jackson has played against the Steelers in his career at the Ravens Stadium with fans in attendance. Now I know that sounds like an ESPN stat, but just hear me out. Lamar, in his career, he has played the Ravens at home only a few times, and of that, I guess only once, and that was in the COVID year. So, yeah, in his career, he had only played against the Steelers, I want to say 5-6 times, and he's played for a lot of years, and they're supposed to play the Steelers twice a year. Some of those games he just sat because they were so far ahead in the division. Other games it was because he was injured. So this is the first time with actual fans in attendance he was playing a game at home against the Steelers. And it showed. I feel like the crowd really showed out in this game. They were loud and involved. In the end, the Ravens did beat the Steelers 34-17. And I won't say that it was like a dominant victory. Maybe at the end they ran away with it, yes. But the Steelers were very much in it, early on. Costly turnover by Russell Wilson. He tucks the ball and runs, doing his best Justin Fields impression. He's a pretty adequate runner himself, though. And he had been getting a lot of yards on his legs. Kind of like cuts it up the middle, and there's basically just one touchdowns. So they had a very, very impressive drive. They moved it all the way down to the red zone, and then instead of sliding, he just loses the ball. So that was the first big mistake. Then down into the fourth quarter, early fourth quarter, the Steelers are like midfield, and there's a solid like 11, 12 minutes left in this game. They're down 7 points. They, for some reason, decide to go for it. Like, I don't even think they're anywhere near a field goal range. I thought it was a very questionable decision. I don't think you had to play that aggressive. Your defense hadn't been that bad. I believe it was 17-24 at the time. And so they go for it, and they don't get it. And, yeah, with that, you kind of think, like, yeah, the Steelers sold that was a horrible decision. Why would you do that? It wasn't even, like, 4th and short. It was fully, like, 4th and 6. And then Lamar Jackson throws an interception. So it looks like, oh, wow, you've been gifted life back into this game. You really just, like, lost all your chances. And now you absolutely, like, there's still so much time on the clock. You're down 7. You got an interception. It is so doable. And then, like, three plays later, Russell Wilson throws a pick 6, and yeah, it was kind of hard to watch. I mean, I say that being neutral, but I felt bad for the Steelers because that is a brutal back-to-back series for them to have a horrible 4th down attempt, and then after that to throw a pick 6 is really iced themselves out of that game. And yeah, it was all downhill after that. So the Steelers, really, I want to say they could have won that game. If they had not made those turnovers the way that they did, they easily could have been in that game, and it's really, they took themselves out of it. Great play by Marlon Humphrey, but at the end of the day, it's like, if the Steelers hadn't made those, it was anyone's game. Those mistakes were really their undoing. And then for the Ravens, they played very well offensively. Lamar Jackson, 3 touchdowns, lots of yards. Derrick Henry, very productive day on the ground. But I do think that they got pretty lucky in this game. There were a handful of times in the first quarter where the Ravens fumbled. Like, Lamar Jackson fumbled, but they recovered it. On a punt, they fumbled, and then they recovered it. So they got really lucky on those. And then with the Lamar interception late, it could have been a talking point. It was, you're up 7, you just stop them at midfield, got the ball, and then you're supposed to be able to go either get another touchdown or a field goal. You immediately throw a pick. Could have been like a game-changing event. Now, luckily, the defense was able to outdo your mistake on the Steelers' end. But yeah, definitely a bit of luck at play. So I'm not saying that they got lucky. I'm not saying it was all luck, but I do think that, like, the Ravens need to be a little bit more careful with the ball. It was dicey at times, and they came out on the better side of things. But that's a lot of what ifs. And yeah, overall good win. You know, you're now in competition for the top spot. So hey, give yourself a round of applause, pat on the back. You're in it to win it. You can't take this division from the Steelers. That was a great win, especially because the Steelers play the Chiefs. But gotta be a little more careful. Anywho, after that, we've got a matchup between the New York Giants and the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons here starting Michael Penix Jr. for the very first time. Kirk Cousins was benched prior to this game after a win against the Raiders, but 4 really bad games before that, and not an impressive game against the Raiders either. And, you know, the Falcons would win this game pretty big, 34-7 against the Giants. And you could say it was partially due to quarterback play, less so that Michael Penix played good, and more so that Drew Lock played absolutely horrendously. The Giants' offense was really just abysmal in every way. They couldn't run the ball. Throwing the ball wasn't great either. Drew Lock throws 2 pick sixes in this game to give Atlanta a huge lead. Michael Penix, he did alright in his debut. Nothing that noteworthy. I believe 200 yards, decent completion percentage, no touchdowns. He did have a red matchup next week against the Commanders, and I think that'll be the real test. We need to see. Penix did fine against a pretty bad team. We need to see how he does against a good team. If Atlanta has any shot at making the postseason. Now, after that, we've got a matchup between the Lions and the Bears. This one, I think a lot of people had the Lions favored over the Bears, and that is how it turned out. The Lions ended up winning this one 34-17. Big shootout last week against Buffalo that didn't go in their way. They also lost David Montgomery in that game. Lots of injuries on the defensive end. You get an injury on the offensive end. But the Lions, didn't phase them at all. Their offense just keeps chugging in his absence. Big day from Jameson Williams. Solid day from Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jahmyr Gibbs eats plenty well with no David Montgomery. They hang 34 on the Bears' head pretty easily. I think they were up either 20 or 27-0, or not 0, but they had either already gotten like 20 or 27 points by halftime. And then the Bears, on the other hand, it's been tough. I feel like there are flashes of great play, and there's also flashes of really gut-wrenching, hard plays. On the offensive side of the ball, you really played yourself out of this one. It was so slim. The chances of you winning this game were so slim to begin with, considering the losing stretch you've been on, and this is being like one of the best teams in the league. So you already enter as giant underdogs, and then you turn the ball over twice. You punt on your first, and then after that you have back-to-back fumbles. It's just like, yeah, you completely played yourself out of the game. After that, yes, there were some great balls from Caleb Williams to Keenan Allen to DJ Moore, but just not in a place to win at that point. So, a lot to clean up, I feel like. And yeah, still searching for that first win after the 4-2 start. Anywho, after that, we had a matchup between the Arizona Cardinals and the Carolina Panthers. Fun fact, this is actually the shortest QB matchup in the post-Super Bowl era, or in the Super Bowl era, since the Super Bowl was invented. This is the shortest starting quarterbacks that have ever faced each other. It's Kyler Murray and Bryce Young, who both stand at 5'10". I forget who exactly it was, but in the past, before the Super Bowl, there was someone who was, I think it was 5'7" and 5'10". Have a big day for short kings. I believe it was also like national. I don't know about national, but it was like a short person day. I heard that somewhere. I don't know who makes all those days, but yeah. Shout out short kings. Anywho, we had the Panthers with a surprising upset in this one, winning in overtime, 36-30 over the Cardinals. Really a brutal loss for the Cardinals, as they were still somewhat in the hunt for the NFC West. Not with the best odds, the Rams being at the head and the Seahawks being ahead of them, but they were still kind of in it. And then just couldn't beat an easy opponent. And I think that clip from before the game is gonna come back to haunt them. There was an interview earlier in the week where someone was asking Kyler Murray about playing in the cold, and he was like, yeah, we've played in the cold. How cold is it even gonna be? And then they'd say like, oh, it's gonna be 30 degrees, and he goes like, damn. And he's like, oh no, I'm just kidding. And then they lose to the Panthers. Yeah, it's a bad look. They are out of playoff contention with this loss, and it is kind of on Kyler a little bit. Just there was a point in the game, late in the game, where Cardinals were down, I want to say 27-30, and they had the ball with a decent amount of time left. They could have gone down the field, possibly scored a touchdown, at the very least gotten a field goal, and then seen what they could do. But Kyler Murray very quickly into that drive throws an interception, costly pick, and then the Panthers, they hold on to the ball. They don't do much with it, but they are able to waste some time, and they waste enough time that the Cardinals, when they get the ball back, they can't really go for a touchdown. They have to go for a field goal to tie up the game. Panthers start off at midfield. Chuba Hubbard takes it in for a game-sealing touchdown. And yeah, just a brutal loss with the late game mistakes and sacks and interception. But it's not just Kyler Murray. It is kind of a trend in the NFC West across all the Sunday games. These quarterbacks late game. I'll bring it up again later, but yeah, brutal way to be eliminated from the Panthers, which really were in contention for one of the worst teams. But they've looked very solid in their last couple, like maybe 6 games, battling hard, getting a couple wins. I have to say, I'm quite impressed, and I think that with the performances that Bryce Young has put together, excluding the Cowboys game last week, I think he warrants another year. Early in the season, I think with the Andy Dalton games, I myself was like, yeah, maybe it's cooked, because as soon as they put Andy Dalton in, they got the offense rolling, everything looked good. But Bryce Young, since weathering that storm and coming back in, he has looked like he is developing the right way, and I think that the Panthers should look at what the Bears did with Justin Fields, maybe wrote him off a little too early, and not copy that blueprint. So hold on to Bryce Young and see. Try one more year. I think that, yeah, give him a long leash. Rookie quarterbacks get such a short leash these days, especially number 1, number 2, number 3 picks. And I know that I'm part of the problem as well with the Andy Dalton game, but I stand corrected. I think he has a lot more good football left in him, and I want to see how he can do in year 3. So I hope that the Panthers also see it that way. Anyways, after that, we had a matchup between the Rams and the Jets. Rams looking to stay at the top of the NFC West, especially with the Seahawks being the exact same record as them. The Jets, on the other hand, not really playing for anything except pride at this point. And the Jets, they come off to a decent start. You know, they're actually leading at one point in this game. And no, they can't really do all that much. The Rams defense stepping up big, limiting the Niners to just 6 points in their previous matchup. Ultimately, the Rams end up winning this game 19-9, meaning that their defense has given up a total of 15 points across the last 2 games. That is absurd. Great output by them. We know what this offense can do. The offense hasn't been as impressive in the last 2 games, but the defense has been magnificent. Showing real improvement on both sides of the ball from earlier this year. The Jets, on the other hand, it's cursed. I really don't know what else to say about it. I was watching the end of this game, and the Jets just fell apart in the 4th quarter, as they seemingly have many times this year. You've got a decent drive, all of a sudden. It's third and decent. Just a miscommunication between Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, who have been so on point with one another in the last few weeks. So, inexplicable miscommunication at a very untimely moment. And then 4th down, Aaron Rodgers tries to hit Conklin, and he doesn't get it well covered, just a tough pass. So they fail at the 4th down attempt. Then they get the ball, drive the ball down the field, try and kick a field goal to at least make the game interesting. And Carlson misses the kick. And with that, it's like, okay, I guess, yeah, they have lost. They've pretty much lost at that point. But still, they're supposed to get the ball back one more time, maybe with like a minute left. And the returner muffs the punt. So, obviously, I don't think they could have done anything at that point. It's not like they were going to win, but just tragic 4th quarter execution. So many mistakes, so many, unforced errors, is what it is. And yeah, the Jets lose yet another one, and the Rams, they win. Big win for them. After that, we had a matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders. Pretty big game. The Eagles tied with the Lions and the Vikings Vikings are best record in the NFC. Big game for them to stay in the hunt for the 1 seed. The Commanders, on the other hand, they are, I wouldn't say necessarily at risk of losing their playoff spot, but it is dicey, at a 9-5 record. There are other teams like, the Seahawks, who are at 8-7. There are people who could contend for that spot. So kind of an important game for them to win as well. And very quickly into this game, you've got Jalen Hurts going down with a concussion. Absolutely brutal for this Eagles team, because while he hasn't been slinging it all that much, he is a big leader for them. And despite the quarterback loss, the Eagles still play very well in the first half. Saquon Barkley has a monster time, finds the end zone, and has over 100 yards in one quarter. So they look to be doing all right. The Commanders not that far behind, but they keep turning the ball over. The Commanders in total in this game, they had 2 interceptions, 3 lost fumbles, and a turnover on downs. And somehow they still managed to win with a final score of 36-33. Now, 22 of their final points were scored in the last period, in the fourth quarter itself. And the Eagles, I think they turned the ball over as well, but only twice compared to 6 times. And yes, while you could say that this is on the Eagles' defense, because they allowed all these plays back-to-back in the fourth quarter, for really letting up. I honestly do want to say it is the offense's fault. It's the Philadelphia Eagles' offense's fault that they lost this game. You lose you lose Jalen Hurts, and yeah, that's going to be a bummer, because now you have Kenny Pickett calling the shots. And just for the Commanders, they turned the ball over 6 times. Your defense did its job. 5 turnovers, 1 turnover on downs. That is 6 times that the defense was able to get the Commanders off the field. The Philadelphia offense controlled the ball in this game. Their time of possession was 36-24. So you had time of possession, you had all these turnovers, and what did you do? You didn't score. You needed to score points. You needed to run the clock out more, and you needed to score points, and the offense just stalled. They could not do it. If you had the ball for 36 minutes, that is 36 minutes that the Commanders' defense is out on the field. They are tired. They are weary. They have played for so much time. You have gotten 6 turnovers, and you couldn't score more points. You couldn't put the game away. It really is, in my opinion, the offense's fault. I mean, the defense, yeah, they did have some challenges. Keeping Jaden Daniels contained, his running ability really did hurt them, and he was able to throw some really good passes. But at the end of the day, they did their job. 5 turnovers is a lot, and they can only do so much. So we'll have to keep tabs on Jalen Hurts and that concussion, because that is very worrisome. The Commanders, on the other side of things, resilient, very resilient victory to fight back after all of those mistakes and come out with a win against a very formidable opponent. It shows great composure. And yeah, I'm impressed. I'm thoroughly impressed. I think you've done a good job at distancing yourself from the rest of the pack. I don't know if they clinched a playoff spot or not, but in my mind, this team, that was a very impressive victory. I look forward to seeing what they do from the 7th seed. And the Eagles, I hope that Jalen Hurts is able to come back. I know that someone mentioned that with them being out of the running for the 1 seed, they might just sit Hurts. And that also kind of makes sense. You don't want to risk more injury. You do want to be rested up. So yeah, either way. Anyway, after that, we've got a matchup between the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals. This 17-6. I wouldn't say it was that close, but kind of late in the game. It was only 17-6, and then the Bengals scored a late game touchdown to really drive that score up on the Browns. For the Browns, gotta feel for Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy with Jameis Winston entering the starting lineup, having all sorts of performances, really, really impressive year. Just because Winston was playing, all of a sudden, he's having 200-yard games, 100-yard games. He climbs into the top 5 of receiving amongst all wide receivers in the NFL. And then you take out Jameis Winston after his game last week against the Chiefs, where he had like 100-something yards, 3 picks. Yes, a bad game. And you put in Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who threw a pick at the end of that game. And in this game, he throws for 150 yards and 3 picks. So did you do anything? No. And Jerry Jeudy, 2 catches for 20 yards. I would be pretty upset if I was him. Just because, at least Jameis Winston, he's exciting. Yeah, he makes a lot of turnovers, but DTR is a little more mobile. He'll pick up some yards with his legs. But we've seen Jameis Winston beat good teams this year. Like, they literally beat the Ravens. They literally beat the Steelers. Why would you not? Yeah, I get that he has played you out of some games, but he has also won you some games. I really will not understand the Browns' philosophy when it comes to this benching. Yeah, I really don't agree with it. I think that the league is more fun when he's playing. I also think this team is a lot better when he's playing. 6 points is kind of pathetic. And yeah, the Bengals get another win here, and they actually are in the playoff pictures. They'll have a shot of getting to 9-8. So they play the Broncos this week, and if they get a win here, then it's not like they control their own destiny fully, but their chances aren't that bad. The Broncos play the Chiefs in Week 16, and if the Broncos lose out and the Bengals win out, and I think like if the Dolphins and Titans lose 1 game apiece, then the Bengals can win it. So with a win next week, their chances are looking mighty solid. There are some strings that need to be pulled, but hey, get a win next week and you're actually have a shot. And if they made the playoffs, I would really like it over that Broncos team. I know that the Broncos are, in theory, a better team, but that second half of football was not that impressive. And I would rather see league-leading Joe Burrow in all these passing categories and the defense. Like, I would rather see a shootout week 1 of the playoffs between the 2 seed and the Bengals. Bills, Bengals, week 1, that would be kind of fun. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, after that, we've got Titans, Colts, Tennessee Titans versus the Indianapolis Colts. This one, the Titans, they were having quarterback issues. Will Levis last week plays horrible, has 4 turnovers, so they get rid of him once again, start Mason Rudolph. And their quarterback problem just seems to be contagious. Mason Rudolph throws 3 interceptions in this game. Colts end up winning it 30-30. The Colts playing with fire though. They were up 38-7 at one point, and then the Titans come storming back to 30-38. Looks like they might be able to pull off the comeback, but Anthony Richardson eventually ices the game, wastes the time by running out the clock, picks up all the yards with his legs, and that really was the Colts' strategy in this game. They rushed the ball 50 times for 335 yards, which is very good. And yeah, they didn't need to throw the ball to beat the Titans. The 50 rushes, 335 yards rushing. Absolutely unheard of. Great job from Jonathan Taylor and from Anthony Richardson. They get a big win. Their shot at the postseason is still alive as well. So, defense has to be a little bit better towards the end there, but all in all, wins win. Yeah. After that, you've got the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Seattle Seahawks. Important game here as well. The Vikings still in the hunt for the 1 seed, or I guess the division title. Right now they're a wild card at a whopping 12-2 entering this game. And yeah, they're the 5th seed. catch up with the Lions. Seahawks, on the other hand, out of the playoff picture with the same record as the Rams. They need a win as well. Both teams hungry for a win, and it was a very nice matchup, actually. Both teams play pretty well, but when it comes down to it, we have a Justin Jefferson masterclass performance. Vikings don't really turn the ball over. Jefferson has where'd it go? Oh yeah, 10 catches, 144 yards, 2-touchdown game with a game-winning touchdown. The Seahawks, on the other hand, 2 brutal drives to end their game. They have a drive that is topped off with a sack that pushes them kind of out of field goal range. They go for the field goal, and it's a 60-yarder, and they miss it. So with that, they can't, I don't know if it was tie up the game or take the lead. After that, then they get the ball. They have the opportunity to try and, it's 27-24. You're not down that much. Go do something. Tie the game. Win the game. And Geno Smith throws a pick. So that seals the game for them. And yeah, I mentioned before, Kyler Murray kind of did a similar thing. Throws a pick. His wasn't as game-breaking or like game-sealing. Geno Smith's was. The game was lost after that. And yeah, just 2 picks from Geno in this game. He has been a little bit of a turnover machine. And offensive line kind of held up. I didn't watch it on that much, so I don't know really if it held up. He only got sacked twice. But, yeah, the Vikings win there. They still stay in the hunt for the 1 seed. And the Seahawks, on the other hand, they lose. And, yeah, their playoff hopes are definitely in jeopardy. After that, we have a matchup between the New England Patriots and the Buffalo Bills. The Pats, they come out to a roaring start in this game, 14-0 on the Bills. Very impressive in their first 2 drives. You've got Drake May with a spectacular throwing catch. I mean, I'm saying spectacular because I've been watching the Patriots by our standards. The throw to Keyshawn Boutte to get that touchdown on the opening drive was insane. And then after that, Bills come out, they can't do much. Patriots go back out on the field, get another touchdown, and then, Patriots go into halftime with the lead, and then fall back to reality in the third quarter. The Bills defense really steps it up. James Cook gets a couple of touchdowns. I think that they force 3 turnovers in the last 2 quarters. So, Patriots go back to patrioting, and then the Bills, they take the lead. They lead by a decent margin, 24-14 for a good while there. Patriots string together a very long final drive to make the score 21-24, but they fail to get the onside kick, and so they lose it. Ultimately, I think it works out for the best for both teams. With all of the events on Sunday, the Patriots end up with the number 2 overall pick, and then the Bills, they stay somewhat in the hunt for the number 1. They have 3 losses on the year. A 4th loss here would have been really brutal. Josh Allen, I think that he slides back in the MVP conversation. Not that he's not going to win it, but I do think that, Lamar's performance was significantly more impressive against the Steelers than Josh Allen versus the Patriots. So his campaign is a little bit at jeopardy, but in the end they do still win it. But yeah, the Bills, they need, I think, the Chiefs to lose both their last 2 games. The Steelers, I suppose, is losable, but then they're playing Denver. It's going to be tough. So chances are slim. Most likely the Bills finish with that number 2 overall, and they just have to take it. Anyway, after that, we've got a matchup between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Las Vegas Raiders. 2 of the worst teams in the league dueling it out in the Tank Bowl. And the Raiders would come out victorious in this game. 19-14 was the final score. Hard to say that they really won. Both teams played almost equally in all phases of the game. Only difference being the Jaguars turned it over twice. But in terms of offensive production, almost the same story. Very similar rushing yards, very similar passing yards. Third down was not too far off from one another, as it was the turnovers. And both rookies really showed out. Brian Thomas Jr. and Brock Bowers both crossing 1,000 yards in their rookie year in the same game. I believe that's the first time that has ever happened. Two opposing rookies crossing the 1,000 yard mark in a single matchup. And then, yeah, the Raiders, they get the win here. But I do think overall, like Antonio Pierce says, yeah, we're here to win, we're not here to lose. And Mark Davis all smiles. But if I'm a fan, I'm pissed. I'm pissed that you went against the Jaguars and you won this game. With 3 games left, you don't win this game. You had the number 1 overall pick. And with this win, you slide to 6th. The Giants are going to take a quarterback. The Titans are going to take a quarterback. Those are 2 quarterback needy teams that are now ahead of you because you won this game. And it's just like, I know you can't really motivate your players to not play to win, but it is still such a... I think it is going to hurt them, because even if you look at the history of the last couple number 1 overall picks and say, like, the miss rate is kind of high, maybe it's not good to have the number 1 pick. You can always trade back. Like, it is very sought after. You can package a deal, you can get so much out of it to win this game and then drop, especially in a year where so many teams are bad. You slip from 1st to 6th with a single win. I don't know, man. The Jaguars losing this game, they're not quarterback needy, but I think that they have the 3rd overall pick. They could trade out of that, get a haul for it. Yeah, on paper the Raiders won this game, but I do think in long term, I think the Jags probably benefit more from losing this than the Raiders do by winning it. Anyway, after that, we've got a matchup between the San Francisco 49ers and the Miami Dolphins in this game. Now, 2 teams that are still kind of flirting with playoff hopes. The 49ers need a lot to go in their favor, but with the Commanders' win, they are eliminated. And I think that they probably knew that heading into the game. The Dolphins, on the other hand, they need a couple things to go in their way, but a win here is big. And so the 2 teams go toe-to-toe. It comes down to the 4th quarter. The Dolphins, they score a touchdown. No, they score a field goal to take the lead, I think it was. Actually, I should look. It was 22-17, so they must have scored a touchdown at some point. 49ers have the ball. Down 5 points. There's 2 minutes left. Brock Purdy throws an interception. And the 49ers, turnover. Dolphins get the ball back. Devon Achane gets a 50-yard rushing touchdown. Completely ices the game. Dolphins win 29-17, but it was 22-17. Yeah, they had the ball with 2 minutes left. And yet another NFC West game decided by a game-clinching, turnover. Horrible day to be Kyler Murray, Brock Purdy, or Geno Smith. Just a bad day for all of them in the 4th quarter. And the Dolphins keep their playoff hopes alive behind the legs of Devon Achane and Jason Sanders. Jason Sanders, 5 of 5 kicking in this game, and 2 of 2 on extra points. He scores 17 of their 29 points in this game, which is the exact same amount that the 49ers scored in the entire game. And then Devon Achane with, 120 yards rushing, a touchdown, plus 70 yards catching, with 6 catches. Big day for him. A lot of it did come on that last second touchdown, but still, those 2 guys leading the way for the Dolphins in a must-win. And then we finally get to a Sunday Night Football matchup between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys have nothing to play for at this point. They have been mathematically eliminated from the playoffs with the Commanders' win earlier in the day. Buccaneers, on the other hand, with the Atlanta Falcons win, they do not own the tiebreaker between the Falcons. The Falcons have bested them in both of their games. So the Buccaneers need to stay a game ahead of the Falcons to against the Cowboys, and the Cowboys come out of the game slinging it. Cooper Rush is throwing dimes. He has over 200 yards passing in the first half. Absolutely crazy. Cooper Rush, a couple weeks ago, he was on, I think, primetime TV, and everyone was chewing the ish out of him because he was ruining, he was blowing it, selling their postseason dreams. I mean, they didn't really have postseason dreams to begin with, but everyone was calling for him to be benched. Comes out against the Panthers, has a great game, comes out in the first half against the Bucs, absolutely turned up, gives them a lead going into halftime. The Bucs respond decently well with their final drive before the half, but in the second half, it's, the Cowboys still controlling it. The Buccaneers, they try and mount a fourth quarter comeback. Deep pass by Baker Mayfield, I think with like 6.5 left on the clock. They're down some amount, and it's picked off in the end zone. He was targeting Jalen McMillan, and Jalen McMillan kind of did catch it and just got the ball ripped out of his hands. Absolutely babied by the Cowboys defender. I forget who it was. And then later, they have a shot. It's 24-26. They have the ball with about 2 minutes left. No timeouts. So they need to get down. They need to get down the field and kick a field goal. First play of this drive. They bring the pressure. Baker Mayfield is wrapped up. He is like going down. He's about to go down, and he wheels his way out of it. He just drives his legs into the ground. Somehow musters forward like 2 yards and completes a shuffle pass to Rachaad White. He not only avoids the sack and avoids losing yards, but it makes it a positive play. Rachaad White barrels ahead and then gets met by Cowboys defender, and as he's being taken to the ground, the ball gets punched out. So in a blur, all of a sudden you see Baker Mayfield, avoid the sack, complete the pass, Rachaad White going to the ground, and the ball comes loose, and the Cowboys are all celebrating, and Baker is just like, what? And they show on the instant replay, right before he touches the ground, the ball gets knocked down. It's Cowboys ball. They win the game, and it's just so incredibly tough if you're Baker Mayfield to have. That was a highlight play. That is one of the greatest efforts I have seen from a quarterback to not get sacked. If you've seen Eli Manning in that, I want to say it's the 2010 Super Bowl, there's one play in the fourth quarter, 2 minutes left. He is blanketed. The Patriots are literally, they should have sacked him. He is absolutely plastered, and he shakes them and then completes a deep ball. It's obviously the stakes are way lower in this game, but it was such an impressive attempt by Baker Mayfield to not get sacked. It totally looked like they were going to get sacked or lose a bunch of yardage. To fight it off, keep his ground, get the pass off successfully, and then have the guy fumble it away. I don't know. It's not often that you see someone lose their job on national TV, just flat out. But I feel like Rachaad White, his days are limited. He is an incredibly inefficient rusher. Buck Irving in his rookie year has outdone him as a rusher. And in the receiving game, he is pretty good. But after something like that, it's going to be a tough offseason for him. I feel like I don't know if the Buccaneers are bringing him back. It's not like a contract year or anything, but, or maybe it is. I don't know. Either way, it's extremely tough for Rachaad White. He was visibly, deflated, upset, and he should be. I definitely cost them that game. But, shout out to Cooper Rush in the first half, and the Cowboys defense in the fourth quarter. They don't really gain anything from this, but now the Buccaneers having to fight for their playoff spot. They can get it back. They play the Panthers, and then they play someone really easy in week 16, I think it is. Whereas the Commanders play the Falcons, and then the Falcons play the Panthers. So they can get it, but it's going to be down to the wire. And then the Saints and the Packers, they played on Monday Night Football. not really much to talk about in this game. The Packers absolutely wiped the floor with the Saints winning 34-0. Goose egg by the Saints. We've had Spencer Rattler starting for the Saints in this game, and the Saints offense just does nothing. They're limited to under 200 total yards. Alvin Kamara out in this game. Rushing offense was not there. Couldn't really throw the ball either. Both times that the Saints managed to get a drive going and they got into the Packers territory as soon as they crossed the 30-yard line. Both plays resulted in a turnover. One was a fumble, one was an interception. So the Packers defense stands really tall in this one. And the offense doesn't have to do all that much. Just pieces together a couple good drives, and yeah, they win 34-0. They have stamped their way into the playoffs. They have clinched a playoff spot. They look incredibly good too. It's so crazy. I think this is honestly one of the few times where the NFC is looking crazy stacked. Like, you've got the Rams. They look kind of dangerous. This is recent stretch. They look nice. You've got the Eagles at the top of their division. As long as they have Jalen Hurts, they're a crazy good team. You've got the Lions, who are looking phenomenal. As long as they can keep their defense intact, they look great. Then, yeah, NFC South is whatever. But the Vikings and the Packers are both great. And then the Commanders have also been very good this year. So honestly, the NFC is shaping up to be very cool. I think that the AFC, I'm a lot less enthused about it. You've got the Chiefs. I don't really like watching them win those games. They win the games, but they're not enjoyable for me. Sometimes they're cool, but I feel like they haven't been high scoring. They've just been well executed, hard to watch games. Then you've got the Bills. The Bills are cool. The Ravens, good at times. And the Steelers, they play well. But the Broncos and Chargers, they haven't beaten a lot of good teams. I think both teams have beaten the Falcons, and then they've beaten each other. And those are the only winning teams that they've beat. And then on the other hand, the Steelers have beaten a lot of good teams, actually. But their playoff record as of late just hasn't been good. They get to the first round, they get bounced. So, the Ravens, ideally I would like to see them do a little better. The Bengals, I'm biased. I would like to see them in rather than one of these guys. I think I genuinely am more excited for the NFC than the AFC this year. Because, yeah, outside of the Bills and the Ravens, I don't love anyone else's chances. I feel like both of them have really good quarterbacks that could go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs, maybe. They haven't been able to top them, but maybe this is their year. And I feel like any other team is just like, the Chiefs are going to outdo them somehow. I don't really see the Chiefs losing to the Broncos or the Chargers or the Steelers, for that matter. We can see on this upcoming